You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to episode 167 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, and we're here. This is the celebration podcast, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts getting mega paid. We'll get into that a little bit later on. And we'll also be going over the third round mock draft. We gave you guys our first round and second round last week. Morgan will be joining us at the 9:30 mark to finish off the mock draft. But yeah, I mean, how you feeling, Eric?
I'm feeling great. Obviously we're going to be talking about this, but the Jalen Hurts contract is very interesting in a lot of ways. But as far as it's draft season, I'm always excited for draft season. I think what we should do, because we were trying to get familiar with ourselves on the last podcast. Thank you for everybody who tuned in for that and watched. But what we should do is we should run back maybe over our first two rounds, and when Morgan's on, we'll just really pop off with the mid rounds. But that's what our aim is today, as Brian was saying. You want to just hop? I know you were at the forefront of it, so you just want to hop right into the Jalen Hurts details.
Absolutely. I mean, Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles, they agreed to a 5-year extension worth $255 million. It could go as high as $274 million because he does have about $15 million in incentives. And then if you calculate the $4 million that he's doing this year, but the big chunk of it, right, $179 million guaranteed. And the crazier part about it is, like, I don't know about you, but I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting a little bit more money for a longer period too, but it feels like, this makes all the sense. You keep Jalen until he's like 29. At that point, you just restructure, you extend him a little longer, depending on how he is in his career. But yeah, I'm ecstatic. I mean, this is brilliant in my opinion. You get this kid who just showed that he's the guy going forward. Last season, he brought you to the Super Bowl. He balled out, went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and didn't even flinch. I mean, if it wasn't for the referees, we probably would have had a more historical ending. But who's to say, right? I think that the key thing about this, and before we get to you, I'll let you kind of get your tidbit on this, is the cap over the next 4 years. I mean, the cap hit is astonishing. Like, as you and I were talking about before the podcast, the cap space overall is just going to be continuing to increase, right? The more the NFL makes, the more these teams are going to be allowed to maneuver within their own budgets. But the key thing to me, and I'm trying to pull up the numbers right now because I could have sworn I had it earlier, is Jalen's cap hit is I don't know how to say it, but it feels like a highway robbery for the Eagles.
Yeah, it's not necessarily not necessarily a bad deal. Like, as if we walk into everything, we just believe it's a bad deal, right? Like, as if we're going to get bent over. That's not true at all in return, in terms of this contract. This contract right here grows in a way, kind of what you were saying with the salary cap. So, like, he kind of, not that he didn't backload, but you can kind of see it increase and bubble.
Yeah, like he worked with a team on this.
Yeah,
like, they actually met like 50-50 on this, and the cap numbers. So we have 2023 $6.1 million, 2024 13.5, 2025 21.7, 2026 31.7. Now 27 and 28 still haven't been revealed, but you got to assume, like, at that rate you extend them probably around 26 or 27 and just keep pushing money out.
And the time that they extended too. I mean, this is going to be kind of on the same curve. Maybe. I mean, considering the quarterbacks that he's extended around, kind of the cycle with Mahomes. He did before Allen. He did it before Herbert. He did it before Burrow. Before Jackson. Like, those are quarterbacks that he'll probably have to. You're probably looking around the same cycle as far as quarterbacks who will receive an extension or receive a big payday by the time Hurts's contract when he's about 29, 30 years old. So I like that Philadelphia kind of got him on cheap because, hey, everybody's going to say he's the highest paid player in the NFL, but that's probably going to happen until next quarterback gets paid. So I would probably leave that as a headline for maybe like 2 weeks. I just kind of look at this. I can't help but look at this as, another Howie move where Howie looked, it got a guy secured in Philadelphia. And while it says, oh my God, he's he's getting so much money. And probably there are people who are thinking he's overpaid because they didn't like Jalen Hurts, for whatever reason. It's not an overpayment for the naysayers, and it's a great deal for the people who like him.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And huge shout out to his agent, Nicole Lynn, who actually just recently got promoted, I think, to president of their division. She pulled us off, and she said it was 2 months in the making, and obviously there was a lot of back and forth because Jalen wants to win, right? But also Jalen deserves every single cent of that contract. And it's just, I don't know, like we were talking about this last podcast, or maybe two podcasts ago, right? It's weird to have an organization running so well. Like it's, I'm a diehard Mets fan, right? So I'm not used to anything like this at all. Complete, it's either a complete shit show or
with
it's
the
just
Flyers. I mean,
exactly.
It could be new, but we don't know yet.
But that's the weird thing. Like, and you're seeing this Eagles franchise from Nick Sirianni down. Like, I don't know. Like, Howie's in his bag. Jeffrey Lurie's in his bag, right? Jalen Hurts got the bag, and on top of that, like Zach had mentioned in the chat, is Mailata also restructured his deal to free up some money, and they still have enough money to sign their draft picks and make a big move. Before we get to what that move could be, I don't know. Like this Jalen Hurts deal is just it's astonishing to me. And it's kind of like it's a little boring per se.
It's
boring.
It might be a little boring, but I mean, it just also at the same time makes so much sense. And you're right. Like as far as this franchise kind of running in a sense where like the players seem happy, like it's like a well-oiled machine, if you will. It's because the players are getting like it's like how you have your player coaches, like the ones that are like just kind of happen to be like not about only the X's and O's, but they have the player relationship kind of pat down. That's a big part of what a front office should have, and I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles finally have that, not only through the front office but also through the coaching, and it goes down to the players, and it's contagious and it shows. As far as looking at the contracts, I mean, they gave Jalen Hurts an option to say, listen, you can get your bag elsewhere. If you win a championship with us, that's neat, but you can get your bag and you can move on when you're 29, 30 and a seasoned vet in the league where maybe you have some decent miles left on you. Maybe you just want to test it out elsewhere and prove something somewhere. Like, I don't know. I'm not comparing the guy to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady eventually left the Patriots to win elsewhere. Maybe Hurts does that in his career. Who knows? The door's wide open at a perfect age for him to still be able to kind of carry that out. So I look at this as like, hey, yes, we do want you. We want you to win here. You want to win here. That's fantastic. We want to ride with you 100%. We're also going to give you the opportunity as a player to do what's fair, to say like, hey, if we are going through a rebuild and you are a veteran who's yet to win and wants to win, here's your route. Like, and so in a lot of ways, it's the players are. I don't know if the player looks at it like that, but I think in some ways there is that very real conversation, especially with the Flyers on my end, going through a rebuild, where you hear players saying it's not particularly what you want, and then they're kind of deciding if they want to go through the rebuild or they want to go and try their hand elsewhere. It's probably real in the NFL too, and if that's the case. With Hurts way down the line. I mean, it doesn't sound like his mentality at all, but if it does, kind of happen to shift like that way down the line, we've seen stranger things happen, and the Eagles are making good deals for the team and for the player. There's all sorts of options that kind of make the Philadelphia Eagles look like a place where players want to sign to. And that I think is the most important part out of constructing this deal.
And that's factual, right? And when I'm saying boring, it's like it's everything, right? It's everything you said right there, right? Like it's just so well done, where it's kind of like there's no drama to it, right? There's no sauce to this. It's just it is what it is. Let's keep moving. Like they're just running the line, and they're feeding their people and just keep it moving. Like we have business to attend to. And then the key thing as well, like, it does open up doors for the team to continue to contend throughout Jalen's career. Again, as the cap space increases, Jalen Hurts' contract does increase, but you're talking about probably like by 7 mil between year 1 to year 2, another 7 mil in year 3, and then 10 mil in year 4. We don't know what year 5 and year 6 look like, but at that rate, at that point, it's you know what you have as a team. You could either be Russell Wilson getting paid with the Seahawks and after the Super Bowl, and then just not being a good team after that, or you can be Patrick Mahomes, where you leave the team breathing space to build around you because you want to win. You want to be great with the team. You don't want to be great just for yourself. You don't want to be that guy that was amazing during the season, but come Super Bowl time, you were never there. Like, you don't want to be a Dallas Cowboy, right? But this opens so many doors for so many opportunities right now. And I think the biggest door, which Doug and Zach are going back and forth about in the chat, is Buda Baker.
Yeah,
the safety of the Arizona Cardinals, who admires Nick Sirianni, who loves Jalen Hurts. He's wearing the number 3 already in Arizona, which resembles Allen Iverson. Like, I feel like this is etched in stone to happen, and it makes all sense in the world to happen. Especially when you have 2 first-round picks and you can even move a second-round pick. I was reading an article where people were expecting that he may be worth just a day 2 pick. If that's the case, you have that 2024 pick from the Saints, which is going to be a good pick. Like, you have ways to rebuild this team and keep them competitive. You could trade for Buda Baker and actually extend him when he gets here, which is the astonishing part to all this.
Yeah, if you're implying that he's probably a second day trade, then I don't think there's any reason why you don't make that trade. Like, if he's a second day and that's all you're losing, you're not losing, either 10 or was it 30 as well. If you're not losing any one of those two, then you got to go and make that trade to get Buda Baker here. Because honestly, as soon as I saw the name pop up, I was like, there's our guy. Like, it also replaces who, funny enough, I had in my second round of my mock taking a safety. So why not?
I completely agree, and it would be such a smart move, right? Because you're bringing a veteran who's only 27 years old, which means if you do extend them, you extend them for another 3 or 4 years. You get that, you just work the deal to benefit the cap, right? That's what this whole offseason has been about. You get players that will benefit the cap, and they also benefit the team. Rashad Penny, 1-year deal. Greedy Williams, 1-year deal. You extended Slay, you extended Bradbury, and it all somehow, some way, how he was able to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with literally no peanut butter in the jar. He's literally just pulling it off, and it's admirable, man. Like, I really have no other words to say for this besides, and that's where I get, like, it's boring, right? There's no drama to this. Like, it's a well-oiled machine. It's that new 2023 Dodge Charger that you just bought off the lot. There's gonna be no problems with this car for the next 4 to 5 years, and you have nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of better than driving a car into the parking space where it backfires and you're just like, all right, well, we made it to Wednesday. Yeah, I do love it that it's, like you're saying, it's drama free, and you do kind of want that easy waters to navigate. I think the only thing that I question is, so Buda Baker on the second day kind of sounds like you're then giving up on bringing in maybe a linebacker via trade, or I don't know if you were going to draft a linebacker by that point, or somebody who can play defensive end who's going to convert to linebacker, kind of that scheme. I think, and because we went over this on the last podcast, I don't think there's going to be a edge that's available that's going to fall to the Eagles. Unfortunately, I think they'll be taken. So in that sense, like, yeah, my number 10, it doesn't change from Skoronski. Actually, I heard a lot of people saying like, oh, he's not going to be a good tackle because he's short arms. I'm like, that's honestly great then, because you're saying to me then, you don't want him to replace, not replace, but like, we have Johnson, we'll have Malata. Well, I'm kind of worried about the inside anyway. So if you're saying that he has short arms and it can't work from the outside, I have all the faith in the world that a top 10 talent like him can convert to the inside somewhere underneath Jeff Stoutland. So that's absolutely a pick to me that I'm still kind of contemplating with, number 10. And then number 30, I think I was going with a defensive tackle or defensive lineman that's somewhere on that last podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, Buda makes a lot of sense. If you can get a linebacker, in the second round, because we're going safety here, like kind of how my mock was going, that's great too. But I don't know exactly where the Eagles are valuing a linebacker versus somebody like a corner. And there's corners to be taken at that area, and there's also wide receivers to be taken. And wide receivers maybe a little bit down the line because, I don't know what the temperature is with Quez, but a lot of people sort of kind of seem to be over it.
And it's and I know we're all for, with the Eagles sticking to the formula, right? Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, top 10. But let's backtrack a little bit, right? Because when the Eagles traded up with the Giants, right? I mean, traded up and hopped the Giants to get to 10th overall. They went after Devontae Smith, which nobody expected. They went after a wide receiver, right? They got that offensive talent for Jalen Hurts.
Did really nobody expect that? Did nobody expected the Eagles to get Devontae Smith?
The expectation was that it was going to be the New York Giants. That it was set in stone. He's going to be a Giant.
Okay. I thought.
We as a fan base, we hope for it, and that's what I'm getting at, right?
Right.
I get it. Everybody's thinking defensive lineman, but is nobody actually tracking what's actually possibly going on? How with their visits? I feel like they've been very interested in these guys that are will be available in the late first round, will be available in the early second round, and this to me, and I hate to be that guy, but this to me screams Bijan Robinson. Because it just makes too much sense for it to not be, right? Like, yes, drafting a guard is great. It will be phenomenal for the Eagles to do that, right? But it's not necessarily a huge need because you have Cam Jurgens, who's getting trained by Jeff Stoutland, who's going to be prepared to do that, to play that role. And you can also draft a guy either next year to fill in that role. Bijan Robinson, though, is it's a generational talent. I don't think he's going to be Saquon level just talent, right?
So are we sure that he is, or can we not hold out for what's the running back that we were all discussing from
Gibbs?
From Pittsburgh? Oh, a Candy. Something like that, right? From Pittsburgh?
It was something like that, but I don't know. Like, you need a guy that's more than just a running back in this offense. And that's what the Eagles have been missing for quite some time. And that's what they got out of Kenny Gainwell in the playoffs. But you can't have Kenny Gainwell play a full season like that. It's something wild.
His name is at all. It's Benaconda.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Not even close. I think I was thinking of a basketball player or something. I don't know.
I'm the king of butchering last names, so that's why I didn't even try it. And I do remember us talking about that. But I don't know. Like, it's just this draft. If you stick at 10, it screams Jalen Carter, Bijan, and I feel like it's nothing less than that. Offensive lineman, I feel like the Eagles are pretty good at getting a guy like that in the second round, which they got Landon Dickerson, they got Cam Jurgens in the second round. I just feel like if you get Buda Baker, you trade a 30th pick for him, or if you trade a second round pick for him, then the first move you make is offense. And I feel like you have to go running back because you have your quarterback that you have to keep healthy. You have to make sure you give him everything he needs to succeed. The Eagles are not in a great position at running back because they don't know what they have in Rashad Penny. He's pretty much like the Jacob deGrom of football. You don't know what you have in Kenny Gainwell, right? He's not. We haven't seen much out of him outside of the playoff run, and we know what we have in Boston Scott. He shows up twice a year. That's it. So Bijan Robinson is the most logical move, as much as people think it's the most illogical move.
I just think that there are other running backs that. I mean, not that you're going to take, obviously, number 10. If you're going to go running back, you're going to take Bijan at 10. Like, that's probably the only running back. That's the only running back that I kind of think about at that early. But I just don't think that that's a priority where you would go number 10, like, and, say, hey, we're going to go Bijan. Like, I do agree with Morgan in a lot of ways. Like, if there's a Miles Murphy, like, would you go Miles Murphy if he's there? Like, I think you probably would.
I'm hesitant though because a lot of these defensive linemen, a lot of the scouts and that and a lot of the higher ups that we could call them, right, the media analysts around the NFL, they're all saying like Miles Murphy, Jalen Carter, they have tendencies to give up in the play. They have tendencies to get a little lazy. I don't want that for this team at all. If that's gonna be the case, would I take Jalen Carter at 10? Hell yeah, in a heartbeat. But you take Jalen Carter at 10 with the idea that you know for a fact he's not going to be letting off on his plays. Miles Murphy, I feel like is a bigger question mark. Brian, who's the other kid? Brian Breesy, I feel like is a huge question mark. Canty makes a lot of sense, right? But Canty's not going to be available at 30, and I feel like 10 is too high to pick him. I don't know, like again, this is boring, right? Because they can go any way they want, and it just makes it's gonna make sense at the end of the night. Nobody's gonna be mad with whatever they do, right? Because it's gonna make sense.
I mean, you're gonna have a sect of people kind of like me, or that's gonna be like, hey, that's not the guy I wanted, but at the same time, you're right. Like if I wanted, like I've been pretty vocal, been beating the Skorsky drum, but if like they were to take Bijan, I'm like, okay. Like that's gonna be my reaction. I'm not gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be like it's not gonna be the reaction that like McNabb got when he was drafted, where he was just booed. Like it's not gonna be like that. It's just gonna be
Definitely
like,
not. No.
right, it's gonna be like, oh, okay, well, they went with that way, like cool. And then you kind of just adjust for number 30, and then that'll be night one, and then you'll probably be pretty happy. I don't foresee this. Like there's again, we said this last podcast. There are so many options in the
Mhm.
first round. It'll be very hard to overthink it and mess it up.
And so just to pick off Phil's question, right? So shout out to Phil who's been doing trending AM with PSN now. Hell of a show, hell of a guy. We big fan of me. I'm a very big fan of his show. I actually watched Phil's show. Wide receiver at number 10. I haven't thought about that at all, right? There's actually some stud guys out there, but I also feel like I don't know. I mean, the organization themselves have to be really off of Quez Watkins to make a kind of move like that. And we haven't heard anything outside of the first rumors that he was on the trade block to begin the offseason. Ever since then, Nick Sirianni praised him, and there hasn't been much out of him. I'm not a huge fan of how they used Quez last year. I'm also not a huge fan of how he lost confidence in himself last year when we needed him the most. That Super Bowl drop is gonna be like etched in my head for years to come. Just because you catch that, I feel like the game changes significantly. But I don't know. I feel like the wide receiver 10 might be a little bit of a jump because you have Devontae and AJ.
And just because of who else you can maybe get at 10 as far as fulfilling those positions. It's not that those wide receivers shouldn't be taken maybe at 10, just not for our team. Yeah, like I kind of understand feeling a little bit sour and, antsy about Watkins, but at the same time, I do kind of think that and Zach Pascal, had filled in his role for us, did a great job. When his number was called upon, pretty much sure-handed, and that was a reason why his number was called upon. But I think at the same time, the snaps not that the snaps weren't going or he wasn't getting the snaps, but he only got a couple opportunities, like and spread out over a few weeks. Not like Pascal was getting maybe a couple opportunities a game and that was it. They were definitely Pascal was clearly the option before Watkins, and I just don't understand. I just don't think. Yeah, you're right. When you go back to the whole confidence thing, that's huge. He didn't really have much room for his confidence to grow. If he botched one play, if he dropped one ball, that was it for a long time. He had a long time to sit there and think about it. While Pascal, he's a veteran in the league, and he's just doing his job. It's bang bang. So yeah, right now maybe this season you kind of try to show Watkins, to rely on a little more, and then if you can't rely on him, you make a mid-season acquisition, and then next year a wide receiver becomes more of a team need in the draft.
Yeah, and I feel like you could possibly go third round for a wide receiver this season. I don't know. I mean, it's the Eagles feel like the Eagles offense feels like a if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing going on, right? Everybody's locked in that needs to be locked in, right? Everybody's on the contract that needs to be on the contract for the next couple seasons, and outside of that, it's just like you just locked in the biggest position at quarterback. Running back is a little worrisome because you don't have a consistent guy until you draft a guy that you believe in. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like going wide receiver so early might just not be the best idea. I do agree with that. But I feel like also keeping Quez Watkins on this roster, like he's the third option, may not be the best idea as well, because you got to create some type of friction there. There has to be competition. There wasn't. It didn't feel like there was competition between him and Pascal. Like even when Pascal was out there, it was mostly for blocking. Quez was out there. He was to stretch the field, and he was barely doing that. I don't
See,
know.
I saw it opposite. I saw Pascal as the option. I'm like, yeah, he was blocking for sure, but he was still the option for passing in my eyes, because to me, he was a sure hand.
He was
Which,
definitely in sure hands.
which kind of doubles down if you're going to say that. And I get it. Watkins is supposed to be stretching the field. Well, it really the threat is Pascal. Then he's not doing his job there. Maybe you just have maybe you make that like third or fourth round. Maybe a wide receiver ends up being in our mid round picks a little bit later on. That you say, hey, here's a little bit of a battle for this role here. But I think you give Watkins one more opportunity throughout the season. If he truly loses it to a rookie, then what time's up. You can't have this linger like a what was it, J Jaw or something.
But isn't it risky to let it linger at this point in the franchises where the franchise currently is? Like the franchise is definitely, the Eagles are one of the top 3 teams in the league right now, right? Coming out to the Super Bowl. I feel like keeping Quez right there to try him out again, to give him another shot. It's a bit more riskier than it is, because what if AJ goes down this season? Then you have Devontae and Quez. What if Devontae goes down? You have AJ and Quez. And like, how much do you truly trust Quez Watkins to make a Devontae-esque or AJ Brown-esque play in the clutch?
If one of those two go down, you don't trust. The answer is you don't trust Quez. You're going to go out of your way to make an extra play for somebody as a rental. That's what the answer is there. So yeah, like I you're not going to get that kind of production out of Quez, even if you kind of had to force it upon him. And I understand that, but none of us ever really kind of thought he was going to be a number 1, number 2. If he can fill in and just give us some promise that he'll be a solid number 3, or at least a serviceable number 3, then that'll at least work. Even if it's showing like, hey, he can't put together these crazy games. He's not going to be a game breaker, but if he can catch maybe 3 or 4 passes in a game, in a 1 or 2 slot, if one of our receivers went down, then that's progression to me. But you do wish that everybody stays healthy and you can kind of get a better read at his normal role. And if you can't get a better read on that, I don't think it's too bad that if you hold on to him throughout this season, then and then you make it an adjustment going into the next all season, because I wouldn't put the weight of him carrying the team. If one of those other receivers go down, I would just go and get another one. Like, that's to me where you don't go out of your way and treat Odell Beckham Jr. like he's going to be a wide receiver that's going to carry you through, a whole season. That's to me where you go out and get a guy like maybe Odell Beckham Jr., not him, obviously, but somebody who might be out there that's a veteran name. And you say, all right, if you want to win with the Eagles, here's your chance. And then you sign them to the rest of that year. And then, that's it. You move on.
Yeah,
like that's the best way to do it.
I think a guy like Jarvis Landry makes a lot of sense. He has sure hands. He could definitely be quick off the line of scrimmage as well. I don't know, but I feel like it's just too risky. Like, you gotta have the depth there right now, because right now it's Quez, Devontae, AJ. You have Devin Allen. You have what's the kid's name? The one that always muffed the punts. Damn,
Jesus, escaping my head too.
I see him in my head and I see him playing, but I can't. What's his name? If you guys know his name in the chat, Brent Covey.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why I was blanking on him. You want to know what was wild when you said that? The guy who used to drop all the punts, for whatever reason. I can't remember if I only remember him being decent, like boom or bust as a punt return guy. But you ever remember what's his name? Cuff that we
Huff.
had?
Josh Huff.
Yeah. Remember him? That was a blast from the past.
Wild thing about Josh Huff. I was a big fan of Josh Allen. I thought he was nasty, but he just never got a chance.
Right.
Like him in the open field when he had the ball, he was he was lights out to me. But he screwed up his career with with an incident that happened off the field and never really got shot again, pretty much.
I just remember him being a special teams guy, but he was very, very boomer bust. Britton
Yes.
Covey has not been boom yet. He's mostly just been I got the ball and then I got hit 5 yards later. Yeah, I mean, dude, I root so hard for him because I just want him to shut everybody up on like just one time on Twitter. It's I it feels like the world is literally against him. And then he gets like 7 yards downfield, and I'm just like, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take 7 yards.
It's just, I
That's
don't
my
know.
win.
Like there wasn't much. I feel like why didn't we put Devin Allen back there? Devin Allen is one of if not the fastest guy on the team. Like why not have him back there, catching punts or kick return? Like he has lights out speed. You could have used him this season instead of Covey, and you could have even used him in the offense a little bit. I understand he's a little bit of raw talent, kind of like a Jordan Mailata, but he's later in his career, right now. He's like 29, I think, 28 years old. But could have definitely been beneficial. At least I would think. Couldn't be worse.
I mean, I think I'd look. I can't get inside someone's head as to why they're not replacing somebody who's only getting like 7 to 10 yards on a good day on a punt return. It's maybe there's not enough of a point of emphasis on punt returns. Like maybe there's that. I don't like. I can't. Why? I mean, you would think that if you had somebody clearly on the roster who can do the job, better, that it would be a no brainer. You would just make the move, and especially when it doesn't cost like a ton of money and it's just a matter of paperwork and contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maybe there's not much of a emphasis on it, but at the end of the day, if he's returning kicks for us next year, I'm going to be the one guy on social media, probably the one guy just like not telling anybody else that I'm rooting for Britton Covey for a 25-yard return. Britton Covey, 25-yard return, book it.
Is he your new Greg Ward?
Well, I won the Greg Ward deal.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I forgot what Greg Ward. I mean, he's not on the team anymore, is he?
Nah, probably. I don't know if I didn't check if he was officially on the team anymore. I mean, I would be surprised if he was because didn't he get his call up, but like if not officially take a snap, or did he take a snap? If he took one snap, then I got to revisit that pork deal.
He definitely deserved more than what he got last season.
He did.
So he was activated in the Super Bowl.
Right there.
I got and they signed him to a futures deal.
There we go.
I would honestly want Greg Ward on the field over Quez Watkins.
Well, thank you. You've seen the light. I've only been the guy saying that for a while now. Like the tinfoil hat has been firmly placed on my head.
It's booming. But, the signal's booming.
The signal, yeah. We're getting all sorts of signals. But I definitely want him there. I thought he proved it just in the 1 year where Carson Wentz, made it to a playoff game with a bunch of
scrubs,
whatever wide receivers, right? And I thought he made it, a few sure-handed plays, and that's kind of what you're looking for. I don't need a guy who's blitzing fast if he can't catch the ball. We've had those.
Yes, exactly.
I need a sure-handed guy who can, like, if he's not exactly open because of his speed, but either like Jason Avant wasn't fast, but he can somehow use his body to get open at the last second and make a catch. That's what we need. I would take 1,000 Jason Avants over, and again, as I said this earlier, over a speedy guy who can't play a full season, whether that meant, would you rather have Jason Avant anytime, or would you rather have like the last reincarnation and thought of Deshaun Jackson, where like maybe he'll be back, maybe he'll be amazing. If I know that the guy's going to hurt his quad like he did in the past 5 years, give me Avant every time. Like, I want the guy that's going to make catches. Give me something close to him in the slot role, something sure-handed, something like a bailout. I know your tight end's supposed to be that, but if you have two, it's not that bad either.
Yeah, I feel like, and looking at hindsight, right? Greg Ward would have made a lot of sense for them to have as a 4-5 receiver. I understand they had Zach Pascal. Pascal was probably a better blocker, which I get. But if you knew what you have, like I feel like with wide receivers, you know what you're gonna have within the first 2 years of their career, right? Year 3, they're gonna show you great spurts, but they're gonna show you some really, really lows, really low lows. Um, and I don't know, like what if we had Greg Ward out there, right? You know, you're talking about a guy who knows how to get open. He knows how to find open space and actually just sit down there and just be invisible. And he also knows how to go up there and get it. We saw him, you know, Jalen's rookie year catch these wild passes in the end zone. We saw him with that game-winning catch against the Redskins of the time, with Carson Wentz. But hey, maybe Ward makes the roster this year. Maybe Watkins is on the bubble and Ward makes the roster, but you still need somebody. At the end of the day, like you still need somebody. You excuse me. You need a burner or you need a great slot receiver. Whether he is a glorified slot receiver in the end of his career, Jarvis Landry, or whether he's a young guy coming out of the draft. You need some sure hands that's gonna 2 minutes left on the clock, second quarter. You throw a wild pass and a deep pass in the Super Bowl. He's gonna make that catch. That's what you need.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. You know, and if you do want a guy that's gonna, you know, so if it ends up being, you know, AJ Brown, then you got Devontae Smith, and then you got what is it? You know, maybe it's Ward, and then you got Quest Watkins, and then maybe your fifth is the guy I would draft this year, like you were saying. I would make that a fourth or fifth round pick, whatever we have out of that.
We have to trade to get a fourth pick.
So do we have a fifth though, right?
I don't think.
I forget. I don't have the picks in front of me right now.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, if we have a fifth, I mean, honestly, Bryce Ford Wheaton is a wide receiver from West Virginia that has my complete bias because I like West Virginia football. But honestly, like he's probably a guy that's going to be taken later in the draft. I don't know if he'll fall where undetected and the Eagles can get him. But if his name's on the board and there's nothing else to really press for except for a wide receiver, I would like Bryce Ford Wheaton just to kind of appear in that roster and battle for like a depth position where maybe he is battling for with Watkins.
So we have two first round picks, obviously, right? We have a second round pick, number 62. We have a third round pick. We don't pick again until the 7th round. We have 2 7th round picks.
Oh, that's right.
219 overall and 248 overall.
You don't have really much of anything in between them. Well, you gotta hope he's there in 7th.
What's up, guy?
What's going on, Morgan?
Not too much. My hair's a little fucked up from the helmet, but I'm here. That's all that matters.
That's better than me, man. I gotta hide mine. My hair's just messed up because I woke up from a nap.
I'm saying you guys should just shave your heads. I mean, it's a lot easier.
I don't know what's going on up there. I have, you're not doing too bad. You actually got like a nice cranium going on up there. I don't know what's underneath this stuff. I don't want to expose it.
It's fair.
Yeah, I burn pretty easily too. So,
another one.
I don't want to feel what a scalp burn feels like ever.
I had it one time. It was in Texas, and it was the worst feeling in the freaking world.
I bet.
And I didn't think I didn't put 2 and 2 together. You should put sunblock on your head when you're outside in the heat. And yeah, I definitely suffered from it, but I've recovered since then.
Yeah. How many years ago was that?
It was probably like 2 or 3.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that's not a 2-year burn, bro.
No, but listen, like last year I had these wild marks and it just my skin was different tones, and I was like, okay, listen, we gotta fix this.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, all that I'm terrified of. So I'm hoping I can keep this going at least a couple more years.
So maybe you can jump into our debate right now before you jump into the mock draft, right? We have about 20 minutes left on the podcast. Wide receiver.
Okay.
So we're talking about, obviously, we have in AJ Brown, you have in Devontae Smith, but you don't know what you have in Quez Watkins going forward because he has great highs, but he has very bad lows. Mm-hmm. Are you for drafting a guy, right? Or signing a veteran? Now, drafting a guy, would you dare go into the first round? Because Phil actually asked that in the chat earlier. or would you go into the later rounds like Eric mentioned?
I mean, it is an interesting question. I think that you definitely have to add someone, whether or not that's in the draft or that's a veteran in free agency. I do think that position has to be addressed somehow, right? Again, you don't know what you have in Quez. Also, Zach Pascal just left. That's a big blow, right? We didn't see that many snaps from him, but very meaningful snaps, right? Third down snaps. You don't have that guy in the slot that can block like Zach did. However you address it, I feel like you have to address it. The draft is interesting. I think that if you're sitting put with the amount of picks you have right now, it's a tough predicament to pick a wide receiver. So if one of those kind of top receivers falls to you at 30, I think that's a consideration. I don't think in any world you pick one at 10. I think you got. I don't think in this draft it's a premium position. It's pretty good, but I think there's value later on. So I think like if there's a case where the Eagles trade back and they can get a pick in the third and the fourth or in the fifth, that's when a receiver might make a lot of sense. I think if you're just sitting there with the picks you have now, you have 2 firsts, a second, and a third. Which one of those picks do you want to take away from defense, from offensive line, right? That it's tough, right? And I also think there's a lot of teams that are really wide receiver needy. So you might see that kind of run in the late second, early third. And, I just don't think like the Eagles are in a position where they need to be trading up, where they need to be kind of finding or reaching for a receiver. So I think you address it somehow. But I don't know unless you get more draft picks if that's going to be in the draft. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
What were you guys saying?
I was kind of on the same thing where it came up a little earlier. Like, hey, here's a wild thought. Would we take a wide receiver at number 10?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just no way that you need to do that right now. My thought was maybe you give Quez another season to kind of boost his confidence. If it doesn't turn up, you still take a wide receiver maybe in the middle part of the draft, maybe towards the end, depending on what you got, and then if you're never going to ask Quez to fulfill a number 1 or number 2 role. So if one of those were to go down, you're just going to probably make a decision mid-season to rent somebody.
Yeah.
And you said Jarvis Landry, Brian, which was a great one. So
I feel like it's kind of risky to just. I feel like you have to go prepared, right? Like this is not the team that's rebuilding anymore. It's a team that we expect to contend for the next couple of seasons. I feel like you have to be prepared going into this season. If Quez is continuing to trend downward, like you need somebody that's going to balance out the offense. Now, granted, like you mentioned more, like Quez wasn't really used much, right? Zach was actually, like to what Eric said as well, Zach was actually used a bit more. But still, like he had a big drop in the Super Bowl, right? Like that's likely to happen again, whether it's him or a guy that's unreliable. You got to know what you have for Jalen Hurts after signing him to such a lucrative deal.
Yeah. The thing with Quez, and I mean this conversation could be a full pod alone, I feel like. But the thing with Quez is the difference between what he was asked to do last season and the season before was pretty massive. And just because we had a guy like people forget that Devontae Smith is a not just a first round pick, but a really, really stellar first round pick. And I think that we're kind of blessed to kind of overlook how good he is. And the leap he made in his 2 years is incredible. Right. And so we're kind of expecting that leap out of Quez Watkins, kind of forgetting the fact that he was a mid-round pick. We weren't even sure that he was going to be as good as he was. And then he kind of surprised us. But for him to make that leap where, there obviously there's some pressure taken off him with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, but he's expected to keep pace with those receivers, right? And those are 2 premium receivers. So I think that there is an opportunity for him to grow in this role. I think there's a lot of expected him of last year, and there's kind of that Nelson Aguilar effect in Philly. As soon as you kind of don't stretch out for that long ball, all of a sudden we don't want you on the team, or you drop one of those balls that you probably should have caught and slant over the middle or something like that. We just have that in the back of my mind, like our back of our minds, like, oh, it's Nelson Aguilar again. It's Shelton Gibson. All these receivers that we kept bringing in the slot as deep threats. And I still think that like Quez Watkins showed a lot, right? Did he make the jump we were all expecting or hoping? No. But is there still that opportunity for him to be that guy? I do think so. So I think that what Eric's saying too makes sense. Is like maybe you can give him that opportunity and then bring someone in. In the middle of the season. Unfortunately, like I just looked it up. Like free agents are pretty sparse, man. I don't know. Jarvis Landry might be an option, but in terms of slot receivers, you really don't have that much available. So I think like you might even have to trade for one or just hope someone's cut. Obviously, there's a lot of cuts coming, so I feel like this could be a position that we see addressed, in August, right when they're in training camp. You're gonna see so many guys cut. You're gonna see so many draft picks that don't make rosters, and you bring a guy in.
I think that's actually not a bad idea. I mean, that's pretty much what they've done for the past couple of seasons with going over, these guys that get cut late in the off season. But hey, we're at the 15-minute marker. Got 15 minutes left on the podcast.
I'm bringing it up right now.
Nice. So last week we went over the first round and the second round. I was definitely outvoted in the first round because I chose Bijan. I know that much. But we also can admit that the system was out of whack because guys were falling to 30th overall. That should have been taken 5th overall.
Fixed it. I think they fixed it because I ran some this weekend and the projections were much better. I think they did a better job.
Okay,
like I wasn't getting the same. I wasn't getting Jalen Carter at 30 anymore. So
I was going to say if we didn't have one if that wasn't fixed, I do have another one.
So should we do the first 3 rounds again? Like now that it's actually a working machine?
Well, what did you want to do? 7?
No, I would say we just do through
1, 2, 3,
the 94th pick.
Yeah. I don't think we did. We didn't do third round last week.
No, we did first and second. So let's do third round included with first and second this week.
Yeah.
And I'm taking Bijan Robinson at number 1 overall.
I'll be interested too. If we don't want it, obviously 7th, we have some picks in the 7th, but next week I'd be interested too if we each play GM and then we just do all the teams. I feel like that could be interesting too.
You make me do a lot of homework here, bro. I graduated high school a long time ago, dude.
Yeah, I mean we would probably just do the first round, but okay.
You got to scroll down. Hold on.
Yeah, there's so much. Okay, there we go. Boom. Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. Interesting.
Miles Murphy.
Did you hear Chef? I think it was Shefty talking about how he thinks there's a big possibility that only one quarterback goes in the top 3, and that C.J. Stroud is going to fall to the Colts. That's not great. Not great news for the Eagles, but
I did hear that one. It didn't sound like it was going to go 1-2 anymore.
So before we go with this pick, and I was mentioning this to Eric earlier, right? There's been a lot of smoke going out. A lot of rumors saying, "Hey, Miles Murphy, Jalen Carter, they're guys that they don't give full throttle on every single play, and they actually take plays off per se, or they just they give up a little bit." At 10th overall, knowing that kind of thing does link that kind of thing does exist. Are we going Jalen Carter still because he's that unique of a prospect, and you hope that Eagles get the best out of him?
Yeah.
Is Joey Porter still on the board?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
I see. I've been playing with fire the past couple of times we did this because I've been banging the Skoronski drum and I see him there. But I've also the only name that's been kind of getting me to go away from Skoronski, as far as me wanting him, was Joey Porter. Like I know Bijan Robinson's the guy that you want, but Joey Porter was also regarded as one of the best players in the draft in general, and the corner is definitely a position where if you have Joey Porter there, I think you're going to be set at corner for a while, for the foreseeable future.
I mean, if these are the options, I'm full throttle on Jalen Carter. I still think he's too much of a unicorn to drop off, but I'm a huge fan of Joey Porter. I just feel like
I just don't think how he's going to be there, Jalen Carter. I'm just trying to play real with what I see here.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, of course, on the board here, yes, Jalen Carter.
We'll follow the board for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you don't get 5 edge rushers in the top 10. I think you probably get 3, maybe 4. I think Lucas Van Ness is probably 11, 12, 13th, like between 10 and 15. And I think Derek Hall is probably after the Eagles as well. So I think probably what happens is Jalen Carter's gone, and then one of the corners is gone. Who that corner is, I'm not sure. I think Christian Gonzalez, like seemingly, has kind of inched himself ahead of Devin Witherspoon. But I think what the Eagles are going to have is a pick between a corner or an offensive tackle.
B. John Robinson.
Or
coming to a midnight green near you.
Or that, yeah. But yeah, I think if Jalen Carter falls to you, I think like what Brian was saying is like I think one of the ways you kind of get around that lack of effort, and I don't really think it gets when you get prospects that good, you kind of nitpick, right? Like you find there's always a strengths and weaknesses column. You always have to put something in the weaknesses column, right? And so if you've taken off a few plays, obviously that's not good. You don't commend that, but oftentimes with these really, really good picks, it's over exaggerated. And the way you fix that is you put him with two of his ex teammates who are going to push him, who know he's capable of. Like you're putting three of the key mainstay players of one of the best college defenses of all time in the middle of your defense. I think that like that's a recipe for. I mean, you always talk about pairing a quarterback with the receiver that came out. You pair two defensive tackles with their middle linebacker. That's fantastic. Like he's that's what he's used to, right? If Nakobe Dean, whether or not he plays Mike or he plays Will, I think he's probably going to play Will in this defense. To be honest, I think that's just where he's going to fit in. But either way, there's just that familiarity, right? And then you have Jalen Carter who can play not only a tackle position in a 4-3, but can also bounce out and play edge in a 3-4. And that's a disgusting 3-4. You have Jalen Carter, you have Brandon Graham, you have Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox interchangeably, and then you have Hassan Reddick rushing off either Jalen Carter's hip or Brandon Graham's hip. Like it's filthy.
Yeah.
Filthy.
Okay. And you kind of nailed it on the head. If there's any locker room that he would be fit, perfect for, I guess it would be Philadelphia. Yeah, I mean, so by the board, let's go for sure, Jalen Carter. But I will also say that, again, as we reiterated last week and before you came on, Morgan, as well, in the first round, there are so many options for Philadelphia. So many. Where it's hard to get it wrong.
Now, do you – I think this – I'm just going to pause here because I think, this is where you see those tackles come off the board. Mm-hmm. I think that this is going to be realistic. I do think that these teams are all tackle needy, which is why I think with the corner – you might not get one of those top 3 corners, but there's a lot of talent at corner that you can still pick up at 30, which is the only reason why in the back of my head, I think that if you are going to go tackle at 10, you have to, because this is what's going to happen is you're going to get this run on tackles because you're going to get a whole bunch of edge rushers and quarterbacks in the first top. And then all these teams are going to want, the Texans are going to want someone to compare with their new quarterback. The Titans need to fix their offensive line. The Jets need to add to their offensive line. The Patriots always need to add to their offensive line. Green Bay needs a receiver, but they could afford to add to their offensive line. So I think you have an option to go corner later. I don't think you have an option to go tackle later. I mean, guard for us, but still.
Yeah.
But yeah, is Joey Porter Jr. your top corner, Eric?
That's that's my top corner. That's out of the whole draft, I'm willing to go number 10 and disregard a lot of other cool things. Again, Jalen Carter, if he's there, that's almost a no-brainer. Skowarski's also been the other drum I've been banging on, and and then Joey Porter would be my third option. But I guess really I would favor him more than Skowarski right now. So I guess he would really be my second option if Jalen Carter was actually available.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about, right? I don't know that this draft is going to shape out the way, the draft network, but you look at all these corners, right? Any of these guys are good options at corner if they're going to sit for a year. Obviously we talked about it last week, but Deonte Banks is my favorite, but I mean, you have 4 really good corners sitting there. And then even more available later in the second round. But 31 to me is going to be so interesting.
I saw Ringo and Forbes sitting there still, so I'm stoked about it.
Yeah. I think another good option is John Michael Schmitz. Again, you're looking for a guy that can eventually play center. We have Cam Jurgens, but you have options now, which is a good place to be. And you're kind of shoring up that interior offensive line.
So you're speaking about options.
Jahmyr Gibbs. You have Jahmyr Gibbs too, which I know Brian, you're a fan of.
I'm a huge fan. I love Gibbs. He has the quickest feet in the draft to me. But when talking about options at this pick, I'm looking outside the draft, and me and Eric were talking about it. Like, why would you
That's fair
not
too.
trade this pick for Buda Baker? Like, 27-year-old safety, you extend him for the next 3 or 4 years.
That's not who I thought you were gonna say.
Oh, we were talking about the day 2, right?
Yeah, most likely a day 2 pick for
Day
Baker.
2. Yeah.
That's not who I thought you were gonna say, to be honest. But
You thought I was gonna say Kevin Byard?
nope. I thought you were gonna talk about a linebacker, but hey.
I thought you were going to.
Devin White.
We were going to go back to Devin White again. For sure.
I honestly keep
think White or Baker, honestly.
I keep forgetting we got Terrell Edmonds, and that's where I'm like, oh, like Buda Baker would be nice, but like Terrell Edmonds, like you have Terrell Edmonds, who Buda Baker might be more experienced, but you
don't have anybody next to Terrell Edmonds.
But Terrell Edmonds is probably going to be your box safety, and I think you're going to go Reed Blankenship up high, and Buda Baker's not playing single high, not at this point in his career. Never, but also not at this point in his career. So I think like. I mean, as much as I'd like to have him, and that gives you a pretty nasty safety tandem, it's just like, if you have to trade a first for him, I don't know.
If you're not trying to swing for White at a linebacker, what about Patrick Queen?
Mm-hmm.
What would his?
Like Patrick
Queen.
Queen.
Did he just get extended?
No, maybe I missed the news. Maybe I missed the news.
Yeah, no, they extended Roquan Smith instead.
Okay, then he didn't. I don't think.
That's what makes 30th like so interesting, right? Because yes, the Eagles can make a pick, but also like if they're actually thinking about getting pieces to secure certain holes, you got to trade back, right? You got to get yourself probably another third, probably a fourth, definitely a fifth, like something out there that could really boost up this draft where you can actually go deep in the draft and pick up diamonds in the rough.
So our options are to trade back at 53. Again, I don't necessarily love the Draft Network's trade assessment because I think you can get better than this haul, like a second, a fifth, and a seventh. I think you're gonna get better than that. But we could trade back to 51 or 34 and get a sixth and a seventh. Yeah, I don't know about that either.
I'm not fans of those. I'm not a fan of those.
Okay, so if we stay put, I mean, there's a really interesting case for Michael Mayer if he falls. Like that.
What about was it Kelly Ringo?
Yeah, that's another good option. Like any of these corners, I mean, my favorite's Deontay Banks. I think that he's going to be potentially the best corner in this draft. You need a bit raw. Oh, he's like just watch.
If you feel that way,
then
I'm all for it because
on the back of an Eagles jersey.
What?
Imagine seeing Banks on the back of an Eagles jersey.
Oh yeah,
that's the perfect name for a cornerback.
Man, if like whether or not you enjoy watching corner play, and I hate saying that, it sounds like some weird porn, like corner play. Like I hate that. I mean, like it's weird. It sounds weird, but
the corner pub by Morgan Burkett.
Yeah, exactly. some weird fantasy shit. But if you like watching it, man, watch some Deontay Banks film. He's just blankets, dude. It's like. I've never seen. He's not the fastest, like top end speed. He can like susceptible getting beat deep, but he's just so physical that none of these fast receivers like they're on their own bench. Like he just forces them outside, and it's just crazy. He's so long. He's such a good corner. He'll come up and run support. He's just
emptying the banks by.
He's this year's Tariq Woolen, in my opinion. Like that's the dude where it's like he might not be the top corner on the board, but he's gonna be a player. And a lot of mocks have him going to Seattle, which makes sense.
I'm gonna watch some corner play right after this podcast.
Some late night corner play.
No, but literally those three right there that are kind of running in a row: Ringo, Forbes, and Banks. Like honestly, those anyone. Like I'm sold at a corner really at this pick.
Yeah,
I mean, like if you can't, again, if it presents itself like it did earlier, and I'm not going to go get Porter, then a corner. Here's what I would do.
Yeah. Does it matter to you which one we pick?
No,
I mean, Brian's gonna make
stoked with all of them, really.
Just go with Banks. Go with Banks.
Okay. Brian's gonna make a case for Jahmyr Gibbs, but
not first rounder. I'll do second, but not first. And this is the moment where the Eagles trade for Dalvin Cook.
Now, I did one separate from this earlier, and funny enough, that's where I took Banks at. I'm sorry, no, I took Banks second. So yeah, it's funny that we did that just now. And then let's see,
I think this is another name that's in consideration at 30.
is this what pick is this? 90 what?
No, we're going to 63 now.
This is 63.
Yeah.
Okay, actually, no, I apologize. I read my own draft wrong. This is where I took Banks
in the second round.
No. I did one differently with a different mock, and I took him at 63 or 62, whatever it was. Banks. So I guess. So is he a corner that could fall, this far back, and would it be a reach to take him where we took him?
I don't think so. I think he's a bottom of the first round, top of the second kind of guy. I just think that like for the draft evaluations that I don't know, they don't like not everyone's gonna see the same thing, right? But in my opinion, that's where he fits. But he could fall. There's like you can just see on the board like there's so many corners in this first 2 rounds.
So we're in the second round, right? No, the third.
Yeah, second round.
I would have gone, at least for me, I thought Antonio Johnson would have fallen down to the Eagles pick in the second round, or Jordan Battle.
Jordan Battle just got taken, and Antonio Johnson's gone. But there's another safety that I really like.
Sidney Brown.
Sidney Brown, exactly. Sidney Brown would be a great pick for the Eagles in the second.
Huh. But now, if you're going right, so if you're looking at his safety right now, let's just say we get Buda Baker.
Buda.
So what does that kind of do? A, with this round, and B, did we have a pick in this round still if we get Buda Baker?
Mm-hmm.
And B, what are you doing now that you have a safety clearly if you do still have this pick?
Right. I mean, you can't argue that at this point in their careers that Sidney Brown is a better safety than Buda Baker. Buda Baker is obviously a better safety. What I like about Sidney Brown is the interchangeability. He's a smaller size guy, but I mean, it doesn't seem to affect him at all. The Eagles have taken chance on smaller size safeties. Even just talking about Avonte Maddox, they had him slotted as a safety at certain points. So clearly they're willing to do that. But this guy can play too high, he can play single high, he can play in the box, and that's who the Eagles are kind of lacking on this defense. Is like you'd like to think that Terrell Edmonds can do that. I don't know that he's really going to be that single high guy. Reed Blankenship, who knows, right? We'd like to see him make that jump, but we're not sure. And so Buda Baker, like he's going to play in the box for you. He can't really. He's getting older, but he never really was that single high guy. That's why I like Sidney Brown. And then two, like what is Buda Baker coming here for? Probably a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, like maybe you re-sign him. But I think that's the benefit of drafting someone is you have someone that's going to grow with this young defense. Like you're going to, like, obviously it's nice to add veterans, but you have veterans on the roster and they're not sticking around for much longer. Right.
Buddha.
I do like it. Also in this, like, I mean, we're Draft Network seems to think that we're reaching for Sidney Brown, but
what about BJ? Because we haven't gone edge, right? We got Jalen Carter in the first. We got who do we get at 30th? We're drawing a blank here.
I was looking over there to Buffalo Bills.
We got Deontay Banks.
Take Addison.
Deontay Banks. And we're in the second round. I mean, is there? I mean, so to kind of follow what Eric's saying right now, is there a wide receiver right now that you would take over a BJ? I'm not gonna pronounce his name, butcher it.
Ojulari. You got it, Brian. You got it.
There we go. Ojulari.
You got that.
I see what they have. What Tom?
I see there was 2 wide receiver names there, but correct me if I'm wrong. Don't we? Why am I thinking that we do have a pick in the 90s? Like we do have a pick in the 90s.
Yeah,
right?
there's a third round pick.
Okay, so
95.
To me, that's I think where I was holding off for a wide receiver.
Okay,
I agree.
So, do we go Sidney Brown here then?
I think here.
I think you can make a case for edge. I think that if Howie Roseman is presenting the option between taking an edge rusher and taking a safety, and he's got them similarly graded, I think he's going edge.
Is Foskey still there, Notre Dame?
What'd you call me?
Yep.
I would say that's somebody I had circled, Foskey.
And I like Tuli Palatu as well.
Okay.
Is his brother still with Philly? Practice
Pretty
squad,
sure.
I think.
Pretty sure, yeah. I should know that, but yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to. I mean, there's so many edge rushers. I think more edge rushers probably get taken in the second round, but I also think Adebawore is probably an option for them at 30. You saw that report that Howie apparently loves him.
Mhm.
I get why. He reminds me of Brandon Graham a lot.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah. So I'd take either. I think BJ Ojolari, or Sidney Brown. Those would be my two choices.
I go with BJ right now just because if it's Howie, it's gonna be edge. But yeah, it's gonna be edge.
Right, Eric, you want to make a case for?
No, I mean honestly, like I looked at Foskey because when I was, I did my side piece over here, and and Foskey was the edge name that was there. There was one of two, but I think it was Ojolari was the other one, but I don't really have much of a reason. I would probably pick either one of those two. So let's go. We're pretty much just an edge here in general. Like whatever edge, Howie likes is probably going to be what I'm going to like because I was going to be taking edge here somehow, regardless anyway. Okay. Like that's just a position. Positionally is kind of what I prioritize when I pick versus then you figure out what kind of works within the position, whoever fits your scheme, whatever from there.
All right. Well, I'm going to take Ojolari. I think that getting him at that position is pretty good too. I mean, any of those edge rushers would probably be good. Joe Tippmann's really good. There's also a guard that hasn't been taken yet that I really like. What? Oh, there's Sidney Brown.
So you said that you agreed on a wide receiver at 94. Do you have one in mind? Because I do if he's there.
No, I do not.
If he's there, let's look at Marvin Mims.
Oh, no, he got taken in a second.
Oh, okay. Well, because he felt in 94 for me. And I was like, hell yeah.
See, this will be my pick right here. You haven't addressed the offensive line yet, and this guy's a fucking dog.
Yes?
Yeah, he's nasty. Okay. Nasty dude. But you also have a bunch of linebackers, which also could be a need.
So Noah Sewell was a name that I saw pop up with linebackers before.
Yep. That would be a good pick. Athletic.
Kenny McIntosh as well, because if you don't get Bijan Robinson, you can still find decent running back between.
So do you go running back? Do you go running back in this round? I mean, if you don't go, I mean,
you also have Trey Palmer. If you're looking for a receiver, you got Keyshawn Boot, which again.
Oh, there he is, Pitt, running back, and then also there he is, Pitt. That's running back that sticks out to me. Yeah, I like him
I practice Abanaconda.
I forgot his name completely earlier, so I said it when it came to heart, and then it wasn't even close.
Yeah, he's that's another one where it's just like fun to watch that film, eh? Like it's just my goodness.
He makes one move and then he's a rocket. It's awesome.
Yeah, he fits nicely in the scheme. Again, traditionally you get a bigger back like Tank Bigsby. I mean, so aptly named, man. I don't know what his parents were thinking, but they got it spot on. Yeah, but I think that the rotation that the Eagles have is kind of more like speed. So as long as you can teach, it's easy. Just they call him Izzy, Eric. That's a little trick. Just call him Izzy.
Well, I was trying to erase it out of my mind because I'm a West Virginia boy, and he ran all over us in that I think it was the first week of the season, maybe the second week, and I was trying to erase Izzy from my mind.
You could. So the other thing that I didn't mention is you could pair Sydney with his brother Chase. They're both Canadians from London. They're from about an hour away from me, so that's why I'm also a big fan of Sidney Brown. But yeah, you got some really good running backs on the board still.
And I've heard some noise about Nathan Dell.
Is Tyjae Spears still on the board or no?
Where is he at there? Wide receiver.
Tank Dell? I don't know. I don't see
Spears gone.
I noticed the Draft Networks does that. They just like sewer some dudes that they don't like, and they're just like way down there.
During
There he is, right there. Houston
Where?
wide receiver. Dell. He's past him.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if you were looking for him or not.
You get the other Herbig.
There is, yeah. I saw that name pop around a little bit.
Linebacker's an interesting one because I do think there's a pretty big drop off after those first couple of guys.
But is linebacker really a position of need? I mean, they went after Nicholas Morrow, right? You got N'Kobe Dean coming in. After that, Deshaun Bradley.
Well, technically, you got Hassan Reddick.
Technically. So who do we go with in this round?
Man, see, this is, I think, a offensive round where you're going to go wide receiver or running back.
I think you go offensive lineman.
Yeah?
It's just
Okay.
it's weird, like because it's just remember what I said at the beginning of the podcast.
Offensive lineman, yeah.
Everything with Philly right now is boring. Everything's just plain, and that just fits their trend.
But do we want to break that and hey, I can learn to grow to like a Pittsburgh running back. I mean, we did it with McCoy, right?
Listen, I tried breaking in the first round with Bijan Robinson, but nobody was for it. Okay, you guys wanted the plain Jane stuff.
Yeah, we got the plain Jane stuff out of the way, and now we got a guy named Izzy. That's pretty cool.
So what's the pick then?
I'm just
if you're saying that what was his name? The offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Whippler. If you're saying that dude is like 100% dog, then
you definitely make that move.
Just tell me who this reminds you of. One sec. Can you see the? There you go. Just tell me who this reminds you of right here. You seen that before? This dude, I'm telling you, man, if you can get him in the third round, I don't think he's gonna be there. I think he's a second round dude, but he
looks like Kelsey just running.
Yeah, it does. It looks like almost exactly like him. Hey, if he can do that, then and that's what he becomes. I mean,
it looks like he could play running back too. I think he could play running back. What do you guys think?
I think so.
He's hitting the hole pretty hard.
Yeah, here, watch this one. Climbing. Yeah, he's good. He's mobile. He's talented, man.
If he's able to do that at the pro level, then that's all you ever need. So, basically, if you're saying that we might be able to get a Kelsey, just to step in, then yeah. I mean, who am I to say no?
Yeah, I mean, you're in such a great position too. Then, if Kelsey does retire, because you got two guys, you let them battle it out, and then whoever loses plays guard for you. Like that's
Or if you have somebody else that blooms at guard, and whoever loses is pretty awesome trade bait now, isn't it? To get some stuff back.
Absolutely,
not a bad idea at all. So that was a pretty decent mock draft. I think we said for next week we're all gonna have our own mock drafts.
Yeah, let's run through our a complete Eagles mock for each one of us next week. I'll try to defend my picks more than going, hey, I like a safety here. So
there we go. There it is.
All right, so Jalen Carter, Deontay Banks, BJ Ojulari.
You got it.
Luke Whippler.
Look at you. To be honest, I want to say Whippler, but it could be Whippler, I guess.
I feel like Whippler is just like more deadlier name.
If these were legitimately the 4 picks and nothing changed, I don't think anybody has room to be really mad.
No,
you could always write at home like my guy wasn't taken, blah blah blah. But that's a pretty stellar 4 picks.
That's definitely it's definitely a decent, very very more than decent draft. You fill holes that are needed, and you would get a stud in Jalen Carter, a unicorn in him. You get what Morgan is saying, probably the best quarterback in the draft in Deontay Banks. You get an efficient defensive edge. And then you get Jason Kelsey 3.0 because Cam Jurgens is 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Not bad at all.
And again, not flashy, but it's exactly what you need.
It's that boring mix. This is just a Philly cream cheese. That's all it is. Like, some people get jalapeno in their cream cheese. This is just regular Philly cream cheese.
That's all we asked for.
And I mean, anytime you can get 3 potential starters.
It's a given, yeah. It just makes too much sense.
Maybe 4. Like that's if the Eagles can get 4 guys that can start for you in the next couple of years in the first 4 picks, your draft's done. Congratulations, Howie Roseman. You win. And then the Eagles can go on and compete for another Super Bowl.
Completely agree with that.
Mm.
So looking forward to next week's draft, right? So we do have our mock drafts coming up, and we also do have PSN's live stream of the draft where you can catch are you guys on for Thursday night or
I did put my name on the spreadsheet for Thursday. And, in case, by the way, if there's any Eagles writer that wants it, I'll go do my Flyers things and my Philadelphia Wings things, and I'll maybe reappear later on in the draft. But I did put my name on it, subject to change, of course, just like pro wrestling.
What about you, Morg? You rocking with us for Thursday?
Potentially, yeah. I got practice, but I got practice.
Practice.
I know I got Tuesdays and
Practice.
Thursdays. I did go today. That's probably enough,
All right, yeah. So I mean, again, we do have everything PSN popping off late next week to cover the draft. We'll have a bunch of our Eagles writers on as well as Flipping the Birds guys on as well. But yeah, until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Morgan Burkett, and we're Flipping the Birds.
Go Birds, baby.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flipping the birds.